right. Well, good morning and welcome to Wednesday Morning Live. And we're going to be talking about a topic that I have not mastered by any means. Actually had to...
I forgot my coffee. Keep going.
Yeah, got to wake up this morning, get something in you. Actually, I've had to, in the past couple of weeks, call and talk to people about this exact topic and where I failed. But we're going to talk today about how to make my words matter. And I want to also bring in, not only from just an individual perspective, but from a job perspective, a parenting perspective, all across the board. And so we're just going to jump right in, get right to it. A lot of times in our society, we hear, and I think in Christian scenarios, Christian settings, we hear all the time about we have to be politically correct with our words. And I read a statement that really stood out to me, and it said it's not about being politically correct, it's about showing respect.
Yeah.
And there is something to having respect with our words through how we communicate with each other. That, yes, political correctness, and I understand the issue that we're facing.
We don't want to
there.
be so countercultural that we embrace disrespect.
Right.
Just because culture is being so politically correct doesn't give us the right to be so politically incorrect. Don't let our for or against decide. How do we show respect? How do we use words wisely?
Right. And I think the story that popped into my mind immediately with this, and this story is used for so many illustrations, but Jesus, when the woman was caught in fornication, and the Pharisees come and they say, "What should we do?"
Yeah.
And he doesn't use words; he just starts writing in the sand. And there's ideas of what he wrote, but he didn't speak. He allowed his thoughts to process. And he knew that his words were going to come and there was going to be an opportunity to speak.
In that setting, there was so much going on. No matter what he said, he would have either angered. There were Roman guards there. I've read a lot about that specific thing. And the wisest thing he could do was actually exactly what he did, because he chose grace but never broke the law, never spoke against the law. And he made it clear, you guys are abusing the law to harm people. Where's the man? Why just the woman? And he just... in that moment, Jesus didn't say anything. That's so important. Yeah. If anybody knew what to say, it's Jesus.
Absolutely.
And yet he kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, and I think that we could probably sit here right now putting you all on the spot, but I think we could all think of a story in the Bible where words were used in a wise manner.
Yeah.
Whether it be from Jesus or someone who prayed for wisdom.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Go to King Solomon and the baby that they were fighting over, the living baby and the dead baby. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Bring me a sword, I'll cut it in half." And the real mom was like, "Nope, let her have it," because she cared. And the other one was, "No, that's fair. Cut the baby in half. Let me have half. Let her." And he knew who the correct person was. But do y'all think of something? Y'all have something that comes in mind?
Well, what about the healing of the man? I believe it was his son he wanted healed, and he says, "If you would."
All right. My belief, help my unbelief.
Correct.
Yeah.
Heal my son. And Christ came back with that same question, "If I would,"
right?
Type thing.
Paul used his words wisely, and there was this one occasion where he was publicly beaten and put to shame, and basically everyone in town had never heard the gospel, began to think, "Oh, the gospel is a shameful thing." Well, the next day the people found out that had beaten Paul that he was a Roman citizen, so what they had done was illegal. And they said, "Hey, Paul, you can go." And he said, No. If you're going to publicly shame the name of Christ, you're going to publicly apologize. Not about his pride, but he wanted the name of Jesus to be reconciled for that whole city. And so he said, "I know my rights." Now, he could have spoken up when they were abusing him. He could have spoken up when they were, but instead he didn't. And as a result, the Philippian jailer gets saved. All these things happen, but Paul knew when to speak up, when to shut up, and that's kind of our issue, is if we always speak up, we might miss some things. And if we're always silent, we may leave some things unsaid. Mm-hmm. And we do need to be wise, knowing when to speak up. But if all we ever do is shout and scream about every crisis or issue, people are going to quickly turn us into the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
Everything's a crisis. Everything's dramatic. Everything's a problem. And so when we use our words wisely, like salt, you can oversalt something, you can undersalt something. We can make a difference.
I think when I saw what the topic was today, the first thing that hit my mind is texting and emails.
Yeah.
You cannot, I enjoy kidding around with people.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to do that in writing if they
really
don't
is.
see your expression.
I've had people take a text the wrong way because you just can't convey, and that's one of the things Kevin's going to talk about is why context matters so much.
Yeah.
One of the things my grandpa would do was record. This is before text message. He would record little notes for his secretary, and because she could hear his voice, he kind of knew. She knew what was serious, what was not, what was just. And he had a little thing. He'd leave a tape in every staff member's box of like what they were expected to do, where they were expected to be, those types of things. But if you were just to write those things, it doesn't convey the same.
Right.
It doesn't come across the same.
Yeah.
So
there's lots of proverbs on words. I mean, lots and lots and lots of proverbs on words and the importance of using words correctly. But Proverbs 11:12 says, "It is foolish to belittle a neighbor. A person with good sense remains silent." And
this doesn't apply to Facebook groups about your neighbors, though, right?
no, absolutely
No,
not.
that's where
as long as they can't see what
right.
you're saying
This was
about them, we should
pre-Facebook.
be
I'm
good,
allowed
right?
to say this.
Yeah, we're joking about this, right? Okay, but a person with good sense remains silent. And man, David Warren, who is
Another one of my favorite proverb writers.
Yes,
David Warren. He wrote the next one.
he's a good friend of mine.
Oh, David Warren.
But
Okay.
no. He's a good friend of mine. But he shared, or his wife shared with me that on I think it was their first date, he told his wife she likes to talk and interact, and he's more reserved and quiet. And she asked him, "Why aren't you talking?" And his quote was, "I don't like to waste words." And when that came across, it was funny in the story.
I'm going to use that on my wife later. I just don't want to waste
Man,
it.
how that applies to Proverbs 11:12 in a lot of ways. Because a lot of times I'm going to talk and just ramble with my words when words are important. And we have to be careful with our words. And the Bible says a person with good sense remains silent.
I took one of those personality tests before we started the church to try to help people work with me and me work with other people. And they do all these traits for how you work and get along with people if you're a team player, not a team player. One of the things that they said at the bottom was Mark likes to use words to overwhelm people as a tool to overwhelm people. And when he can't convince them with his argument, he'll just dump words until they stop talking. So I'm not so wise with my words. Or at least I wasn't 6 years ago. I'm probably way better, right?
Yes, you're getting better. Yes, you are. I found I had to do a lot of changing also in the fact of thinking and choosing the right words, because I have been very used to just saying exactly what's on my mind.
And I didn't put.
Then you'd have to explain later what I really meant.
Right. And I didn't put your quote in here, but you say all the time, "Take my words with grace." And a lot of times, and there's nothing wrong with that, I understand what you mean by it, but a lot of times I go into meetings and I'll say something along those lines, "I don't mean to insult you, but," and then we kind of prefaces it with, "I'm getting ready to say things that just really need to be said." And a lot of times we use, like you said, choosing the correct words is very important. Also, there are correct ways and incorrect ways on how to use words, or ways for words to be used. We need to choose wisely before opening our mouth and before writing that next email, because man,
There's trigger words you can use just to get you know the words. You know what to say. You can accuse, like, for instance, right now,
passive aggressive. Yeah.
Right. There's a way that Christians are talking to each other, and I'll try to use both terms here. Like, you can say, "Well, you're just woke." Well, you're looking for an argument. You're not really trying to have a conversation with somebody. And then, like, the opposite side would be, you're just closed-minded. You can just use those words and quickly cut off a conversation. There's no more progress going to be had. You're not going to get anywhere with them. And really, those are words that we know what we're doing when we use them. And what we'll do is we'll insert them, though, right? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I think you're being a little da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, it's the Oreo method.
Right.
Cookie, cream.
Right. And we know what we're doing. And then we wonder why people take our words and use them against us, because we've been using those words. We've weaponized these words against each other. And we as Christians cannot be those types of people. Yeah.
Also, the tone that you use is very important, because
And that happened to me just keep that thought, but that happened to me just the other week where my tone was incorrect, and I had to call someone and apologize and say my tone was incorrect, and therefore my words came out incorrectly. Yeah. But continue, yes.
No, I agree. And your volume as you're speaking. I tend to, if I really get excited about something, I get louder.
Right.
And sometimes loudness is very dominating the other person. So it's not just our words, but the tone also that I feel is very important.
Bible talks about a gentle answer. Proverbs 15:1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but hard words stir up anger. And that gentleness is not just in words, it's in tone, like you said. It's coming in with a calmness. And we all know those individuals who just kind of calm settings. They don't come in with the to-do list and check. It's let's calmly get through this.
Have you ever, well, I'm sure you guys have, taken these personality tests where they say, oh, you're either a beaver or a frog or whatever?
They're a little more updated now. Yeah, we don't
come across as a tank. You know?
Tank. Everything's animals except Sue. She's a tank.
Yeah.
Say what I mean.
That's right.
In a way, I'm frustrated that we have to talk about this because these are things that I was told as a child. And I think part of the issue is we have a whole generation of Christians. You may have been raised in church, or you may have been raised and taught all these other things, but we often don't know how to communicate with each other. We only know how to talk at people.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we're not making any progress in our relationship or whatever it is at work.
And that's where the next one comes in, the topic, habits matter.
Yeah.
You even mentioned the other day about, and I'm bad about this, I think the majority of people are guilty. We say things about people behind their backs. And sometimes it's unintentional. Right. It's just a habit. Yeah. It's something that we formed. And that talking about people behind their backs will come out.
It'll catch up
when we're around others.
Yeah.
We will talk about someone else. And I have learned, my wife has helped me with this, but if a person will talk about somebody else behind their back while I'm around, they're talking about me when I'm not around. And man, for me to be that person talking about others, how degrading and what a destruction that is. And that goes into the verse that you pointed out, Sue, on Proverbs 25:18. You read that one and said that's very point blank.
I mean, they don't mince words on this. Telling lies about others is as harmful as hitting them with an axe. That's a pretty picture. Wounding them with a sword or shooting them with a sharp arrow. I mean, if you don't get that point.
Yeah.
Well, and the other part of the habit is not just talking about people, but how you talk. If you are constantly using foul language or constantly, just discouraging in the way that you talk to people, or even just, you're always angry, that's gonna come out. You can only have a version of yourself that you put out in public for so long. Eventually, the way that you talk, and so that's why it's important to get up and spend time with the Lord and pray and be honest and open and accountable and vulnerable and have people in your group. The more we do this, the more this will infiltrate every other area of our life. If you're angry all the time and you're yelling at people all the time, it's probably because you've been honestly talking to yourself this way, listening to the wrong voices, listening to the wrong influences. And so creating habits of, I am going to be kind with my words and not lying.
Right.
It's
not flattery.
Right. You're not avoiding things you need to address. It's just knowing how to do it in such a way that you are not taking life from the room. You can be life-giving in a room even when you correct, even when you point out issues.
And my dad always used the example, a trash can. When you put trash into the trash can, what's going to come out? Trash. You turn it upside down, trash is going to fall out. The same's true in our lives. If we are constantly filling our words and our minds with garbage, whether it be what we watch, who we hang out with, the things we read, the things we listen to, if we are constantly infiltrating our minds with trash, it doesn't matter how many times we tell ourselves, well, I'm an adult, I can weed through this.
Which, let's talk about that for a sec, because what we typically do is like, oh, Pastor Mark, I'm not watching anything with cussing in it or nudity in it. No, but if all you watch is angry, everything is angry all the time, upset, you're going to be upset and angry.
Come out,
yeah, and so you're like, well, I'm not watching anything trashy. I'm just watching cable news. You just look around. Like, we have an epidemic of people who are just always angry because what they watch is always angry. And it used to be that the news was on for 2 or 3 hours. Now it's 24/7. You can find a million things to get upset with each other about.
I also believe we have the responsibility that when you find yourself in a group, the two examples I could use is either when a number of gentlemen get together who have been in the military, or the police department is also where I ran into it, where they use the F word as a noun, a pronoun, and however else. There's very little English in there. But in order, it happened that when I was with the police department, my door was the changeover. They were not allowed to use that kind of language when they came into, and that gets back to respect.
Right.
You know, how can you expect respect if you do not let them know what is being disrespectful to you?
Right.
That's right along with the next one. Laziness with words is an epidemic. Like, we live in a society where people are just going to fill their conversation with fill-in words, and it's typically cuss words. It's words that are degrading, disgusting, but it's because we've just become lazy with our words. And I agree with that. You know, whenever I worked at FedEx, I remember one time I said, "Oh shoot," and I had 2 people come to my truck and start yelling, "Kevin just cussed," and I was like, "No, I didn't. I said, oh shoot," and they're like, "No, are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah, that's what I said." And so even those words, I have to be very careful because people are watching us, and they have a respect, and they're not going to use those words around us. But man, that first time that you do it, they're on it.
Well, and the other thing with this whole, like, using language like that, it loses its effectiveness. And I'm not advocating for cursing, but I'm saying if someone just uses foul language all the time, I don't know what they're going to use when they're upset. So I don't know how to tell when you're seriously upset or if you're kidding with me. But if you watch your mouth and you're not always angry or always loud, it should be almost like a salt and pepper thing. Like, oh wow, this is serious. He's raised his voice. Oh wow, this is serious. I've never heard them use this word. Oh wow, this is serious. I've never heard them take this tone. But if you're constantly at this level, this angry, using these words, I don't know when to take you seriously. This is just, I'm all over the place. And so that's why this lazy talk makes it hard for us to even communicate with one another if we're always talking that way. There's no reservation for, well, this is a serious conversation, or this isn't.
Yeah, and having that transition of what you're talking about.
And I think you brought up a good point too now with how you're brought up. What kind of words were being used in your family environment? What was allowed, what was not allowed?
And let's talk about that from a parent perspective real quick, and just an adult perspective.
Right.
If your kids are growing up in a house where husband and wife are screaming at each other constantly, why do you think they're having issues at school and not listening and wanting to share their opinions? Because that's what they know. And so it's what we surround ourselves with, but even, I think more important, what we can also help others is how we surround others with our words. In the workplace, if we're the ones at the jargon is at the water cooler, if we're the ones on the assembly line, if we're the ones on wherever it is at work who's constantly playing down and constantly degrading our place of employment, it's not going to build up the environment. People aren't going to want to be. We're just one of the others.
I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember Ann Landers. She had a column in the newspaper, and she was talking about.
What's a newspaper? I'm just kidding.
Cutting edge illustration here. I remember Ann Landers. I do.
But she had said we should watch the words we say, because if we keep saying to our kids, "Oh, you big dummy,"
Right.
Oh, you idiot. Or what's the matter with you? That is going to eventually, affect them and think that they're a loser. Or not.
And we think,
worthy.
well, it's just a word. It's just like a little drop of water. Yeah, it's true. You add enough drops of water, though, you get a bucket. You get enough buckets, you get, you know what I'm saying? Like, these things add up. And the main thing we want you to understand is that your words do matter. So just be careful, use them wisely. And I think today you've got an opportunity. You could go online right now and you could use your words in a way where you could harm someone. You could really hurt someone's feelings, and not just like they had a bad day. Like, we have seen kids kill themselves because of online bullying. Your words matter. You could go online today and you could use your words to encourage someone. I have a friend whose brother passed away last night. Tragic, just awful. And I don't even know what to say. But I reached out a little bit, and your words sometimes don't even feel like they matter enough. But you can still use them to let people know, man, I'm with you, I'm praying for you, I'm so sorry. You have an opportunity every day to use your words, and if we aren't careful, we'll pick the wrong side. We'll either do nothing, not talk to anybody, just worry about ourselves, or we're over here using our words like bullets, man. We are mowing people down.
And sometimes using no words in a situation where someone has passed.
That's right.
Just to let that
Your
person know,
presence.
I'm right here.
Yeah.
If you want to talk, I'll listen.
And
just let it go.
we shared a Bible passage or a story from the Bible of words and the individuals, whether it was Jesus, Paul, whoever. But what we saw in each scenario was they listened, they paid attention to what was going on.
Listening is a big part of it.
And they used their words after they processed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't process. We think that people need to hear what we have in our brain right now. And man, look, one of my kids, just this week, I was getting on to one of my kids for a certain thing. And while I'm getting on to this child, one of my other children does something wrong in front of us. And the child I'm talking to looks at the other child and says, "You can't do that." Blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, whoa, slow down. You know, a lot of times we're quick to point out other people's faults. And you know, in my mind, I'm like, where does he get this from?
Yeah.
And I know exactly where he gets it from.
Right.
Yeah, it's me. When I do wrong, my automatic reaction is, let me find someone else who's done wrong, and let me point out their faults. Let me help. If I can help them, I'll feel better about myself. But man, let me read this last verse. That this is powerful. But Matthew 12:36 says, "I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak."
This is Jesus talking there.
Man, what a judgment I have coming, because I know the careless words. I know the words that I've said that have hurt people, and I'm still haunted by many of those words. There's times that I'm sitting in silence and I will be reminded of something that I did or said. We have an opportunity to speak life into people. A person's words, Proverbs 18:4 says, a person's words can be life-giving water. Words of true wisdom are as refreshing as a bubbling brook. Man, our words are important. And, you know, as the wise prophet David Warren said, the guy in our church, as a matter of fact,
Don't waste words.
I don't like to waste words.
Which is so important, and thank goodness for God's love and His grace.
Yeah. So adults, kids, single people, married people.
Humans.
Yeah, humans. Let's be careful with those words, because what we say can impact someone today that we never thought we would have the opportunity to.
Exactly.
And don't go sharing this like, hey, all my friends, y'all need to see this. Like, look, if every one of us would listen before we speak, don't just, now, we do want you to share the video, you know, but don't be like, hey, some of y'all need to see this. No, all of us need to think this way. We need to be careful. And I really think we live in an age where most of us type more than we say. Like, I'm talking to y'all in the office today. There's a few other people here. I might talk to 10 people in the church today, maybe. If I post something on Facebook, a couple hundred people see it.
Yeah, it's going out there.
Yeah, so
They might not like it, but
right,
they see it.
Your words today can go so much farther than ever before, and yet those are the words we typically like, just comment,
just real quick.
reply. Who's this fool? What did they think?
Yep.
And you have no idea. I like to think, and this is stupid, but I don't know if it'll be around when I have grandkids. One of the things I think often is, if I comment this, will my grandchildren be able to see how petty their grandpa was one day over a Facebook post that somebody argued with him over the color of whatever? I don't know what it was, but that's usually what keeps me from posting something like, I don't want my kids being like, Grandpa was upset about what?
Yeah.
And that's the power of the pen has often been used. But the idea behind that is if you are writing it out, you are using your mind and thinking about what you are physically writing, not texting.
Yeah, the problem is once you hit post, buddy, it's out there.
Exactly. And where if you handwrite it and reread it 9 out of 10 times, you may not even.
So Sue's trick
if I handwrite it, I'm not typing it.
Facebook post. I don't like you.
And then take a screenshot.
Yeah.
Or take a picture of it and then post the note.
Eventually, I'm going to learn how to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, but how to make my words matter. Words are important. Guys, I don't have this figured out. None of us here have this figured out. If I have hurt you, I am sorry. And I want to. God deals with me often on words that I use. And so I pray for each and every one of us that God will give us life-changing words to be able to give to individuals who are far from God, so that we can see people learn about His word, which is true and it's faithful. And may we use the words that matter today.
That's absolutely
Listen to the words in your head before you speak them.
I don't want to ever say anything that would discredit what I might say to someone about God. Because if I've been speaking lies or untruths or unreliable in the things that I share or post, then I don't want them to take less seriously what I had to say about Jesus. So my words they don't just matter right now. They're building a foundation of credibility with my neighbors, my Facebook friends or followers or whatever. So they do matter. And you never know who might not listen to you down the road because of something you post or say.
And it's not going to be an instant. It's going to be practice.
Yeah, every day matters. Those habits, like he said, habits matter. So make the change.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yep.
We will see you next week, Wednesday morning live, but also this Sunday at 9:30 and 11.
And we'll have Sue turn her phone off.
Yep.
Yes.
People trying to get a hold of her early.
They're probably
in the
sending her
morning.
kind words of encouragement.
Why aren't you at the gym? We're here waiting on you.
All right, y'all, go get your exercise in.
See you guys.
See ya.